Good evening and welcome to the Ogden City Council meeting of August 1st, 2017. This is a regular council meeting which we have all council members present. Councilmember Stevens is on his way, and Councilmember Garner has been asked to be excused for tonight. This is a little bit of an unusual meeting for us. We are doing our second virtual town hall meeting, and I welcome everyone here to the town hall meeting. We are a little more comfortable in our clothing attire as we are going to be leaving here afterwards and going to the Night Out Against Crime. So we have a presentation and by Janine Eller-Smith, and then we have some questions that have already come in. And if there are other questions that do come in throughout the night, we'll try to answer them if we have time. If not, we will get to them and get back via our Facebook posts for those. So just so you know, if questions do come in as we're talking and we can't get to those, we'll try to post the answers on our Facebook page. So Janine Eller-Smith, please.
Thank you. I know we want to save as much time for the questions as we can, so this will be a very quick presentation. I just wanted to kind of give you an overview of what decisions the council has already made with regard to the budget. On June 6th, you adopted the RDA and the MBA budgets, and you also adopted the city tentative budget. And that's something that's an action that is required by state law. On June 20th, you adopted the salary schedules. We had to do that before July 1 because that's when the fiscal year starts and we needed to be able to pay our employees. So on August 8th, which is a week from tonight, you will have a consideration of the final budget and a determination of the tax rate for this current calendar year. The only change to the tentative budget that is proposed is adding $250,000 to the CIP for the stadium seating at Pioneer Stadium, and we've had some discussion about that. These are for the north seats. With regard to the other one, you have some options with the tax rate. As we mentioned, the certified tax rate, which came from the Tax Commission in the county, is 0.002895. And the current rate, which is what we've discussed as maintaining that rate for the current year, is 0.03103. Now you can pick any number in between those numbers, above that, below that. You have the option, and that's your decision. However, if you went below the certified tax rate, we would probably have to reevaluate the budget because then it wouldn't, the revenues wouldn't match. So just a few issues in this Truth in Taxation hearing, which you'll be having next week. As we've discussed, the certified tax rate is designed to generate, it's revenue neutral, which means it just generates the same revenue that we get the previous year. And as a result of that, the rate is adjusted down. And we've seen this, I've showed you this slide several different times. The Treasury Department, I thought this was interesting, for the city, calculated if we had maintained the rate since 1987, just from 2006, to the current year, we would have had an additional $41 million that the city could have paid, used for streets and things. Citizens may not understand the certified tax rate. It's a complicated thing, but everyone can understand inflation because we all deal with it in our personal lives, and we all know what it does to our buying power, and it's the same impact for the city. When that certified tax rate is maintained or goes down because of the way the certified tax rate works, we don't have the same buying power that we did the previous year. The impact to the citizens is on an average home in Ogden will be about $19 per year. And the way they calculate that is the difference between the proposed rate, which is maintaining 0031003, and the certified rate. So that's what the difference would be on an average home. But because it's going to impact everybody differently, we as staff put together some calculations instructions so that our citizens can go to this website, the ogdencity.com/budget process. There's some instructions on how they can calculate their own impacts of this. And actually, there's just a little calculator they can stick in the value of their home, and it will tell you exactly. The common error that people make is they assume when we tell them we're going to do a 7.2% tax increase, they calculate that on their whole tax bill. Because everybody knows how much they pay in their taxes, they don't necessarily know how much they pay in Ogden City taxes. So we just need to remind them that that 7.2% is only on Ogden City's portion. That calculator doesn't add in any potential increases from other taxing entities because we weren't able to get that information. But it only calculates the impact to the city's portion. So with that, unless there's no other questions, we'll let you get to the questions from the citizens.
Thank you. So we've had quite a few questions come in already, and Brittany, please.
Yeah, so our first question is from Kim. Some of the side streets and even 2nd Street in Northeast Ogden are in need of maintenance. Are you planning on budgeting enough for street repairs and upkeep?
Who wants to take that?
Chair White, I'll stab at that one. Unfortunately, Kim, our needs do outweigh the resources that we have for that purpose. As you are fully aware, the last winter was very hard on our streets, and there's a lot of need. We do have a good thing, though. Our administration has prioritized the improvements that that are needed and taken the worst ones and prioritized them and made it to where they're really not all that bad. However, there's always an increased need for that. You might be interested to know that we've allocated about $9.3 million to maintain and preserve our city roads. And so that's quite a bit of money. It's more money than I as a lay citizen even guessed that we would put towards that. But we continue to use that, and in this next year we expect that there will be some more money that will come from other funding sources that will help us with that. But we are doing our best to make sure that we are frugal with the citizens' money, with the taxpayers' money, and trying to get the best use out of that same dollar.
And we know that the winter was not nice to our roads this winter.
It seems like we review this every year because the maintenance of our roads are very necessary for the service to our citizens of the city. And this is an ongoing, and it'll be ongoing into the future of maintaining our roads and sidewalks. And so it's a constant program.
When we live in a climate like ours, roads do take a toll. It's unfortunately a casualty of our climate.
Thank you. How about another one?
The next question comes from Travis, and he asks, last year the council approved a tax increase to provide law enforcement and firefighters more pay. Can you confirm that all of our police and firefighters received their raises and explain what kind of increase they actually saw? Can you also address if there has been any indication that this pay increase has made Ogden Police and Fire more competitive?
Chair White, would you mind if I took a quick
I'd love that. Yep.
Okay,
You
thank you. That's a great question, Travis, and I'm glad you asked because I'm very, very proud to report that all of our public safety employees have gotten a 4% salary increase as a result of the work that we've done. We've also been able to to provide police and fire corrections so that we can account for years of service for the employees that we do have. And you ask if this has had a competitive effect, if this is actually keeping our employees here, and I'm happy to report that yes, it in fact is. We have had a lot of our officers who are, in my opinion, some of the best and brightest in the state of Utah, and I'm very proud of Ogden PD and Ogden Fire. And it's an indication of their top quality that other departments are coming to Ogden, and they want Ogden police officers and Ogden firefighters. And because of the compensation packages that we put into place, because of some of the steps we've taken to make sure that our public safety officials are paid better, that they're trained better, that we were able to keep them longer, we're happy to report that a lot of them are choosing to stay in Ogden, keep roots in Ogden, raise families here. And that's something that I'm very proud of as a council member, and I think you guys would agree.
Comments to that?
I think there's one other just little issue is that in January of this year, we did replace the Civil Service Commission with a Public Safety Employee Appeal Board to ensure, or not ensure, but to assist in the hiring process so that we can speed up that process and get those recruits in and get them into our police force as quick as possible. So, and that's helped and been a big benefit also.
Chair White, one more quick thing. If you spend time with our public safety officials, you'll often hear them say thank you for these pay raises. So they thank us, but they thank the people of Ogden. And if you don't believe me, I hope to see you guys at the Night Out Against Crime here directly following. Thanks.
The next question comes from John, and he says, how do the wages of Ogden City employees compare to the wages of employees of other cities in the state?
Councilmember Stevens, do you want to take a stab at that?
Sure. We always compare our many issues with Ogden compared with the other cities around the state to find out if we have collected the correct information and to get feedback and how they're running their programs. But every 2 years, we do a benchmark on our employees to find out just how competitive we are. And some of these cities that we align with is Logan, Murray, Salt Lake, Provo, and Sandy. We're not the highest, nor are we the lowest. We're about right in the middle. But I think it's important for us to make sure that our employees are compensated just as equally as some of the other cities around the area.
Chair White, also, this came up early on in the budget process about our employees and how well are we taking care of them. And one of the questions that was asked of our personnel people is our turnover rate either extra high or extra low? And it turns out that, and that's a pretty good benchmark of how to figure out whether you're paying them about the right amount of money, and it's pretty average. I think we've got a good, a pretty normal turnover rate. So I think the citizens can be assured that we're paying them about the right amount of money.
I think the key issue is when we do the benchmark is a comparable rate, and we get the full picture of how our employees' rates are compared with others, and I think that's the true picture.
Great question. Keep them coming, Brittany.
So we have a question from Jeanette. I see the council has agreed to transfer funding from non-dependent juvenile court graffiti program of $33,700 and increase the public services structural and mechanical part of the graffiti program. Was the non-departmental part of the program not as effective? What does the structural mechanical part of the program focus on?
That's a pretty specific question.
That is specific, but I'll take a crack at it. Thank you, Jeanette, for that question. This really isn't an issue of was the program effective or not effective. This is simply a matter of that program being reassigned to a different part of the city. The city just no longer uses the juvenile court graffiti program. Instead, that's now used, or public services is now responsible for the graffiti removal. And so those funds were just transferred to that department to help offset those costs.
So we'll continue to work on that. Any other comments about that? That was very specific.
Next question comes from John. Other cities give low-income seniors exemption from city taxes. Can we do the same?
I can talk about that briefly. There are 5 different tax relief programs that are available for Weber County property owners, and that were set forth by the Utah State Legislature. And these can be found on the website from Weber County. If you Google Weber County Utah Tax Relief Program, you'll find a link there that says Tax Relief Weber County, and it takes you to the application form, and there are 5 different categories again for people that are blind, veterans with disabilities, deployed military, for low-income families, and for low-income individuals under the age of 66. So these are available again at the Weber County website, and there's an application. So if we can help our citizens explore this a little bit more, I'm sure that maybe we can do that.
I would agree with Councilman Lopez, is that's a good question. And it should be a question that we should review every year, because most of these people, I'm assuming, would probably be on a fixed income. And if we can give them relief somewhere along the way, then I think we ought to review that and see if there's any possibilities of doing that.
I agree wholeheartedly.
And we internally have some home in Ogden or Home Sweet Home program that we can do loans to as well.
Travis asks, considering our budget was such that we needed to increase the tax rate to provide police and fire a needed and better wage, have you pinpointed an area in this budget that can be improved upon to save taxpayer dollars? Whether that be an area that could be cut or made more efficient to save tax dollars while still maintaining or even increasing its services?
That's also a very specific question, but Travis, thank you. If you don't mind, I'd like to take this one on because of my harping all the time about efficiencies and accountability. One of the things that we've done since 1998 is to look at things like police and fire. And over that time, believe it or not, since 1998, our fire department is operating with 14 less fewer personnel than they did have in 1998. And that our police are actually at 1.7 police per 1,000 residents, when the benchmark we know is about 2 police officers per 1,000. And that doesn't even take into account any of the people that come into the city, like throughout the day, to work here and to, dine and those kind of things. It's just per resident. So, over time, we've actually held pretty consistent with our police and fire personnel. One of the things that I find, and I always ask about that same thing about efficiencies, and you guys know that one of the things that the engineering department has done is brought engineering services, or some of the engineering services, in-house, and it saves us about $286,000 on an annual basis to bring that and provide those in-house engineering services. Human resources and some of our other departments use online training, which also saves us money. And then we've done all sorts of different kind of things, like our fire department saves about $350,000 a year just by using existing staff to fill some of the ambulance personnel needs that we need. So we really do look at efficiencies, and I wish I could name them all. But as we continue to go down this road, I hope to continue to keep those lists so that when we are asked these questions, that we'll be able to answer them in a more succinct manner. Any other comments?
Chair White, can I add a comment? I think we'd be remiss to not mention the work that we're doing through our Community and Economic Development Department. it's important that people know and that we are not relying on property taxes as the sole source of revenue. As we've kept our property tax revenue stable throughout these many years, we have gotten new revenues through new growth, and that new growth comes from new developments. And so it's important to note that we have seen a tremendous influx of new development and new economic opportunities here in Ogden, and it's really heartening to see that vibrancy return to our community, but it's also important that that economic sustainability come to our community. And so the more of that economic development that we can attract here, the more we can buffer the need for more property tax revenue too.
And I want to also follow up by saying that, our city administration has done a great job. I mean, we, leaving that tax since 1998 pretty consistent, we've done a lot by stretching those limited dollars. So kudos to the administration as well.
I think our police chief and fire chief uses the money very efficiently in trying to find grants that will increase their capacity of equipment and that, and I think the training of of our personnel is of a higher degree than what it has been in the past, and I think this adds to the efficiency of the dollars that they have allotted to them.
Next question. How much of my property tax bill does Ogden receive? Where does all of the money go?
Anybody?
That's a great question, and that it's an easy question. If it's okay, Chair White,
Yeah.
I can answer that. It is sometimes unfortunate that there's a perception out there that all the money that people pay in taxes sometimes is collected by our city, and when we attempt to make efforts, as we've been talking, to try to increase taxes to pay for the services that we have to provide. Some people may have this perception that Ogden City is collecting all these taxes, and when the reality is that Ogden City is only collecting 18% of the taxes people pay. And more than half of the taxes go to the school district, and about 11%, the rest is spread out through other 5 taxing entities. And those are the Central Weaver Sewer, Weaver Basin Water, Weaver Area Dispatch or 911, Mosquito Abatement, and Weaver County Assess and Collect. So again, Ogden City gets 18% of the share. So when people pay their taxes, if they pay $1,000, we get very little of that.
180.
180. Yeah, the rest goes to the other taxing entities. So
That was quick math, thanks.
Yeah, I'm a whiz at that sometimes.
Next question comes from John. How is it possible that the city is 3 decades behind in addressing the impacts of inflation? Don't taxes go up when home values increase?
Ooh, pick me. Let me talk about it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. That is
Member Blair.
that's a good question, and you would think that makes sense logically, and that's something that is kind of hard to wrap your head around, because you would think that as property values go up, the taxes would automatically go up. But the state actually has a formula, a very complex and, in my opinion, complicated formula that actually decreases the tax rate as those home values increase. And at the beginning of this virtual meeting, Janine Eller-Smith actually showed you what the tax rate was and how it had lowered, and how there's options to raise it or keep it the same, just so that we keep it the same. So it actually, the purpose of the certified tax rate is to actually keep that amount that a city collects the same as those property taxes increase, which, as we talked about earlier, the only way for a city to get increases is either to have a truth in taxation and go through and raise property taxes, or from the new growth and new developments that a city has and receives. So,
Chair White, can I chime in on the questions that Councilmember Lopez and Councilmember Blair talked about kind of brought to my mind some of the discussions we had early on in the process when we had our consultant in. Back in the late 80s, before we had raised tax, at the beginning of this long session of no tax raises, Ogden's portion of the total tax bill was about 25%, and now it's at 18. So that indicates that our administration has done exceptionally well, and our department heads of tightening their belts to be responsible stewards of the taxpayer money. We have just, kept our expenses down, and I think that the citizens should be elated that that's been the case. Their taxes have not gone up because of Ogden City's. They do go up, but not because of us. We're trying to be very careful. I think that's
Other entities have raised their.
exactly. And we're not trying to catch up with that 25% either. We're trying to keep it as responsible as we can.
Next question. Ogden's tax rate is already among the highest in the state. How can the city justify a property tax increase?
Anyone?
I'll take it.
I'm looking at you.
I haven't taken one in a while,
Okay.
so I'll take it. Since Councilmember Blair so excitingly talked about this
That
in the
formula.
previous question, yeah. The question's accurate. Ogden does have one of the highest tax rates in the state. We're the third highest in the state behind Salt Lake City and West Valley City. But that's a little bit misleading because of how tax policy works in the state of Utah. So, as Councilmember Blair already mentioned, the lower the value of our properties, the higher your tax rate has to be. And conversely, the higher your home value, the lower your tax rate is. That's just how state law and state tax law works. So here in Ogden, we're actually kind of lucky. We have low property values, and that's one of the things that attracts people to Ogden. It's certainly something that has allowed me to live a higher standard of living than I could elsewhere, and it's one of the things I love about Ogden. So if the average person wants to come and purchase a home here in Ogden, they're going to pay about $167,000. If you go to a neighboring community like Centerville or something with a little higher cost of living, it's going to cost a little over $260,000 for a home. And so it's, in order for us to have the amount of revenue that we need to provide the services that our residents expect, while also having low and affordable housing for everyone that comes to Ogden, we do have to have a higher rate. So to say that we have the third highest rate in the state, while true, it is a little bit misleading. We also enjoy benefit of low cost of living too.
And if I could just follow up with that, I think one of the things that we forget is that it costs just as much to supply fire and police and street maintenance to somebody paying property taxes on $167,000 as it does to someone paying property taxes on $261,000. So that price is pretty constant and fixed.
And I'll just add one thing, because Ogden City is a larger city in our area, and we're very proud of the vibrancy in our community that we're attracting visitors to our downtown and to our neighborhoods, and that actually brings added stress. That brings more people and more use to our infrastructure. It puts an added burden to our public safety folks. So we already know that we don't have enough police officers for the number of residents that we have. It's even lower if you add the number of visitors that come to our community. We have a very large daytime population here and an ever-growing nighttime population here as well.
Thank you.
I think this is the last question that we have time for. It is, the council and administration made an extra effort to increase transparency and community outreach. What are some of those efforts and why have we implemented them?
Great question. Somebody want to answer that? I'm looking your way. I've looked this way, and I'm looking your way.
I heard you. Wait.
I can start. We can.
Heard you inhale, so go ahead.
We can work on that together.
Okay, great.
Vice Chair Heyer. Yeah, we are making efforts to definitely be more transparent and do better community outreach. In fact, I personally care very much about this, and I have made it really a have made a big effort to bring this to the attention of my council member colleagues, and we're also working with the administration closely to try to do our best. We're doing things like creating a website, enhancing the website, and revamping a website that is live now, that has quite a lot of capabilities and tools for people to access information faster, better, has translation capabilities, better searching capabilities. And another effort that has been going on for a while now is a branding effort, and we are putting resources towards these initiatives, funding going towards it, so it's important to back it up that way. So definitely working on some pretty interesting things here. Anything else you can add?
Yeah, there has been a lot of things that have happened because of technology. We've been able to employ to make sure that the work that we do is more transparent. I don't think we've ever had an inclination to try to be secretive, but it's just been harder to do outreach. Our new website is fabulous as far as letting people search it and find information, and the branding effort is kind of working hand in hand with that website to make sure that we work on that the ability for citizens to find things and to reach out to us. We're having a new software program. The old one finally is expiring, or it expired, and is now we're using a new one called the ERP. It's the Enterprise Resource Planning, that has a module that will help people to explore the financials of the city a lot better. I've got to say that we are very intent on trying to make sure that our citizens can get the information, can find information, and there are some talk of some things that are going on in the background that I think are going to come forward. I can't say anything much about it yet, but stay tuned, because there's some cool things coming too that will help people to be able to find information. Stay tuned.
And if I may add also that I also give a lot of credit to the administration for their willingness to work with us as we make this request to do better public outreach and engagement. I keep hearing from leadership that the administration is very open to this idea and have made good efforts, and that's very important, as we can't do this alone. We need to have a good working relationship, and we do. And so, really thank them for that. That's very important.
I think what we're doing tonight is evident of that, and at our council meetings, as you mentioned, Louise, is that they're live, and so we have more. We're getting into the homes of the citizens so they can see how government is actually working in their behalf.
Next time, we're going to be at a coffee shop having this conversation. That's what we hope. Coffee links.
Yeah. Thank you all for participating tonight. This was the second time we've had a virtual town hall meeting, but the third time that we've had a discussion about the budget. One more opportunity for citizens to engage next week, August 8th. We will be deciding and voting on the current tentative budget for fiscal year 2018. So if there are other questions, please come on down, and thanks for joining us tonight, and hope to see you at the Night Out Against Crime. Thanks.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn by Vice Chair Hyatt, and second by Councilmember Lopez. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's a wrap.